So, as we attempt to take off on this journey towards true devotion, we need to take seriously the idea that there are things that we have to leave behind. Sins for sure, but also influences and things that lead us to sin. And I'll give you one example. My wife and I, we found ourselves years ago wasting hours like binging on this show or that show when our kids were really young and asleep. But again, those were hours that we could be spending in a more noble pursuit. And then we asked ourselves, we wouldn't even show this to our kids. What in the world are we doing watching it? So yeah, that purification begins.
This is something that I talk about with Catholic radio all the time when I go to parishes and invite them to start listening to our local Catholic radio station here, Sacred Heart Radio in Cincinnati. I say what we choose to listen to on a daily basis is profound in whether we are formed or deformed, as the case may be. And it's definitely something to think about, particularly as we are approaching Lent. What do I need to detach from in order to attach myself more fully to the Lord? And a huge part of this is going to confession, isn't it, Deacon Nathan?
Yes, indeed. And I think first it's important for us to be reminded what happens during confession, right? Because during our baptism, God gives us that fountain of grace. He puts it right into our hearts. And so that fountain is flowing like a fire hose, at that sacramental moment. And all throughout our life, we have his grace, his help, those promptings to pray and to go forgive someone and ask their forgiveness, and strengthening our will and improving our intellect. But when we sin, especially mortally, we take that fountain and we turn it off. So we cut God's grace off from our life. And it's amazing that we do this and that we would even do it on purpose. Confession gets it turned back on. And yeah, like I had been away from the church for 10 years. So no confession, no sacraments, no grace. And I remember seeking this out at the moment of my conversion. And what I found was this, the theology on tap. And so I go to this bar basically,
Nice.
and confessions are happening in a broom closet. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And this was one of those whole life confessions that St. Francis de Sales talks about, after 10 years of being in the military and being, a single guy seeking selfish pursuits, whatever. This was an important confession. And there's the priest waiting there, Jesus waiting for me in that broom closet. And we were just going to have it out right there. And it's amazing. This St. Francis de Sales says the best cures are effected gradually so that they stick. And so he talks about the saints like Mary Magdalene and St. Paul. They had these radical immediate conversions. But this, for me, that one confession was an amazing moment of this was the beginning of grace coming back on. And then the process of, conversion took years and years after that. Well, again, with that fountain of grace, once we realize that has been cut off and that we've done that, the first thing he says is that by sinning that way, we've lost God's grace. And we need God's grace. This is the only way that we can thrive. It's the only way that we can achieve salvation. And so that's the first thing. We've lost it. And then we've rejected our share in paradise. We've just renounced our inheritance, the greatest thing we could possibly have. And we've said, no, thank you. We've accepted the pains of hell, and we've renounced God's eternal love. We've said, I don't need your help. I don't want your love. And we've kind of killed charity. And so, we like to say, why would God do this to us? Why would he do this to us? But we're not realizing that we've done this to ourselves.
Wow. Like, it just kind of stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? One last thing before we go, because we were talking about those sinful affections that we have. What does he say about trying to purge ourselves of it, just quickly?
Well, here's a good example that we can reflect on this week. He says it's like the sick man who stops eating melon because his doctor says it could kill him. But all the while he's longing for it, he talks about it. He bargains when he may have it and would at least like to smell the perfume of a melon. And he thinks those that are free to eat it are very fortunate people. And he calls us weak and cowardly penitents. We give up sin, but reluctantly. And so that's something for us to reflect on. What is our contrition like? Are we really ready to give those things up and turn away from them and set ourselves on a new path?